Hello everyone, welcome back. This is another data analytics video, and today I'm going to focus on visualization. I want to show you how to use the ggplot function to do some basic visualizations, specifically bar charts. I want to show you how to use ggplot to do two types of bar charts, okay? So let's go ahead and learn how to do that. As usual, I prepare a notebook for this video. Here's the notebook, and I will share a link to this notebook in the video description. Okay, so you're gonna have access to the notebook. Right now, the notebook doesn't have any code. Well, only the code like this to load the packages. But basically, I will be writing the code as I do the different examples I want to show you in this video. The notebook has a few prompts, and these are just like reminders. The prompts are reminders for me to just remember the different things I want to accomplish in the video. Okay. All right, let's jump into the notebook. All right, guys. So ggplot is a function from the ggplot2 package, and the ggplot2 package is a package that belongs to the tidyverse package. So to be able to use ggplot, we need to both install and load the tidyverse package. I already installed the tidyverse package, but if you have to, I included the code for you to use to install the package, okay? And all you have to do is comment this out and then run the code cell, and then the tidyverse package will be installed, okay? But again, I don't have to. Um, After you install the package, you need to load it. And remember, to load it, you need to use the library function and the name of the package. So let's go ahead and load the tidyverse package, okay? There it is. So loaded. And now we have access to the ggplot package and consequently to the ggplot function. Um, the data, what data we're going to use? We're going to use the well-known penguins data set. The penguins data set is part of the Palmer penguins package, okay? To access the Palmer Penguins package, you need to install it. Again, I already did, but if you have to, I included this code right here. So all you have to do is comment this out, run this code cell, and then the Palmer Penguins package will be installed. Okay. I already installed it. What I need to do is to load it. I'm gonna load it with this code right here. Once you load the Palmer Penguins package, you can have access to the Penguins data frame. Okay, let's take a look at the Penguins data frame using the structure function. And as you can see, this is just a data frame with 344 rows. So we have data for 344 penguins. And for each penguin, they collected data about the penguin species, right here, the island where the penguin was found, the build length, a few physical characteristics, and so on and so forth, and the year where the observation was collected. Okay, cool. Let's use this data set, and let's do a few bar charts, okay? First, guys, and this is the first type of bar chart. Remember, I said I was going to show you how to do two types of bar charts, right? Well, the first type of bar chart is a bar chart for a single qualitative variable, okay? And what I want to do is first, I want to do a bar chart to display the count of penguins for each species. So a species is a qualitative variable, okay? And the three type of species are, as we will see in a second, Adelaide, Shinstrap, and the other one is Gentoo, okay? So that's a qualitative column, and it's perfect to do a bar chart, okay? And the first one is a bar chart to display the count of penguins for each species, okay? Okay, how do we do, or how do we use ggplot to do a bar chart? First, we start by calling the data frame with the data, and the data frame with the data is penguins. Okay, penguins right there. Now we use the pipe operator, this one right here, and with the pipe operator, um, we invoke the ggplot function. So after invoking the data set with the pipe operator, we invoke the ggplot function. So ggplot open and close parentheses, and now we need to pass a few arguments to the ggplot function. Actually, in this case, the ggplot function takes only one argument, and this argument defines how the variables in the data set will be mapped to, let's say, visual properties in the plot, okay? So let's map, okay, in the ggplot, let's map some variables, one or more variables from the data set to visual properties. How do we do this mapping? We use the AES function. Let me type it in. AES function, and AES is short for aesthetics, okay? And well, to do a bar chart, and it really depends on like how you map things depends on the type of chart you are doing. For a bar chart, we only need to map one variable from our data set to the x-axis. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to do. Um, we need to map one variable from the data set to the x-axis because again, the kind of bar chart we're doing is only to plot one qualitative variable, okay? So and we do that mapping again using the AES function. Here, what we want to map is we want to map species, okay? We want to map species to the x-axis, okay? Because we want to see in the x-axis the different X species, and then on the y-axis we want to see the count for each species, okay? So this is the way we do it, guys. We say for the x-axis, we want to map equals a species, and you need to use the exact column name, okay? So species, like that, okay? And that's all, guys. So that's all you need to do in terms of the ggplot. Now we need one more thing, guys. Now, to be able to do the bar chart, we need to define the specific geom function that we need to get the bar chart. Each type, and this is what you need to remember. This is one of the most important things you need to remember. Each type of chart in the tidyverse requires a different geom. Like a scatter plot requires a geom, a box plot requires a specific geom, a line chart requires specific geom. Okay. Um, for a bar chart, we use the geom bar function. So geom underscore bar, open and close parentheses. So that's the geom function we use to get a bar chart. Okay. Now we could um, map, like inside the geombar function, we could map a variable or more than one variable from the data set to a visual property of the bars. But we don't have to do that in this case, okay? Later, I will show you how to do some mapping inside the geombar function, but we don't need to do that right now, okay? One more thing that we can do, and it's kind of optional, but I think it is nice. I want to kind of label the x-axis with the specific variable that that we are plotting. So we are plotting the species, right? So I want the x-axis to have a label that says species, okay? Kind of optional, but I think it's nice, okay? And to that, we can use the labs function. So labs allows you to define the names for the y-axis and x-axis, okay? In this case, I just want to create a lab for the x-axis. And now we type in whatever name we want to give to the x-axis. I just want to call it species like this, okay? Or you can call it penguin species if you want, okay? Anyway, so that should be all. And let's take a look. And that's perfect. So we get a bar chart showing each species and the count. So how many penguins for each species, okay? Um, that is great. So what next? In many cases, analysts want to sort a bar chart by the count. Like right now, the bars are not sorted, right? So how do we sort the bar chart based on the count? First, I'm going to show you how to sort it in descending order. And to sort this in descending order, I'm going to copy this because we kind of need to use the same code. And this is just one way, guys. As you know, in programming, there are usually more than one way of doing things, okay? But one easy and recommended way is that if you want to sort a bar chart in descending order with respect to frequency, you can use the factor frequency function, okay? And so basically, right here, right here, we pass species, okay, the species column as an argument to the factor frequency. Let me type it in right here. FCT, that's short for factor underscore in frequency. That one right there, okay? And that's a function. So what I want to do is I want to pass species as the argument to that function. What does that function does? That function, let's say it allows us to sort the labels, okay? It allows us to sort the labels of a qualitative variable like a species, displaying the label with the highest frequency first, okay? And that's what we want. We want to display the label with the highest frequency. So we want to display the species with the highest frequency first, okay? And that's the default behavior of this function. So by default, um, it sorts the labels in descending order with respect to frequency. And sure enough, let's go ahead and execute that code cell, and there you have it. So bar chart sorted by the frequency of the labels of the different categories in descending order. So Adelai is the most frequent species, then followed by Gentoo, then by Shinstrap, okay? Obviously, another possible question is, what if we want to sort this in ascending order, so from lowest to highest? That's straightforward. And again, this is only one way, okay? There are other ways, but one quick way of doing that is by reversing this order. Remember, I said that this function by default sorts sort things in descending order. We can reverse that by using the factor reverse function, okay? So if we wrap this, that right there, we wrap that inside the factor reverse function, that will reverse the factor ordering, okay? Factor reverse is actually this function, um, ct underscore rev right there, rev, factor reverse, okay? And again, it's a function, so what we need to do is we need to pass all of that because we want to reverse the order of that as the argument to that function, okay? There you have it. That should do it, okay? That should do it, and it does, okay? Now we have our bar chart sorted in ascending order. And yeah, that's the way we do it, okay? One of the ways, again, there are other ways, but at least I want to show you one way of doing this. Guys, what if now we want to add a different color for each species? Maybe we want to show the shimstrap bar with the color, and then the bar for Gentoo with a different color, and so on and so forth. I think that would be a great idea, right? To show the different bars with different colors. How do we do that? Well, if we want to display a different color on each bar, we need to translate that into kind of ggplot language, okay? So we need to map now a variable from the data set to the color property. Think about that. So we need to map a variable from the data set to the color property of the bars. What variable? What variable do we need to map to the color property? Well, the bars represents the species, right? The bars represent the different species. So we want different colors map to the species column, okay? So we want to map the species column to the color property. Let's go ahead and do that. And actually, to do that, we can kind of copy this same piece of code, and we just need to add one more thing, okay? We just need to add one more thing right there, okay? And what we need to do is how can we map the species column to the, I'm sorry, the species, yeah, the species column to the colors of the bars, right? Um, well, we need to map, as I said, the color property to the species, okay? And we do that inside the geonbar function, okay? Now, like right here, we are mapping um, species to the x-axis. You know what I mean? So we are mapping species to the x-axis. Now inside geom bar, we want to map species to the colors of the bar. So this mapping should happen inside the geom bar, okay? And that's what we're gonna do. Remember, whenever you're doing a mapping, you should use you must use the AES function, okay? And inside the AES function, you do the mapping. So we want to map the color property to a species, and this should do it, right? Let's see. Hmm. Wait a second. No, no, no. We are not getting different colors for the different bars. Actually, what we are getting is kind of hard to see, but kind of the edges, the borders of the bars have different colors, right? Like red. See that? Blue, green. But that's not what I want. I want the bars uh, the bars itself to have different colors, not the edges only, but the bars themselves. So how do I accomplish that? Very straightforward. All we have to do is fix something here. We don't want to map species to color because if we do that, we just color the edges. We want to map species to the fill property, FILL, the fill property. Okay, so we're gonna map species to the fill property, and you will see what happens. Okay. I'm gonna leave that there for you, actually, just as an example of what you should not do. And let me just copy this again, Control C, create a new code cell right here. And now let's fix this problem. So again, we want to map species not to color because otherwise we color the edges. We want to map it to fill, FILL. Okay. And now this should do it. And it does. Okay. That is perfect. Okay. So again, this is kind of a syntax that you need to know about a ggplot. Okay. To map the inside of the bars, you need to map variables to fill, not to color. Um, okay, so that is great, guys. That is great. And this was the first kind of a bar chart that I wanted to show you, how to do a bar chart for a single qualitative variable and to show the count for each categories of that variable. Okay. Second type of bar chart is this one. It's a bar chart for the relationship, a bar chart displaying the relationship between two qualitative variables. Okay, so how do we do a bar chart if we want to display the relationship between two qualitative variables? Let's see. Now, as an example of this type of bar chart, I want to do a bar chart showing the distribution or the frequency of species, that's variable number one, within each island, variable number two. And notice that these are both qualitative variables, species, qualitative, and island, also qualitative, okay? A chart like this, a bar chart like this, will allow us to see if, you know, maybe yes, maybe no, if one species is more prevalent in one island than in others, okay? So a bar chart like this will allow us to see how the species kind of behave inside each island, okay? So we can see the relationship between the two characteristics. All right, how do we start this a bar chart like this? So kind of the same way. So we start by invoking the data set, penguins, pipe operator, and then ggplot. Now this is the thing. What are we gonna map inside the ggplot function? Well, remember, here we want to show species within each island, right? So we want island actually on the x-axis, guys, okay? We want one bar for each island, okay? So we want one bar for each island. So we need to map island to the x-axis, okay? And remember, to do that mapping, we always use the AES function, okay? And we want to say, hey, in the x-axis, I want to map the island column. All right, great. That will give us um, the one bar for each island. But this is the thing. Now, within each bar, right, we want to see the count for each species, right? And how do we accomplish that? How do we accomplish that? Well, inside the geonVar function, we want to map a species to the field property. This way, the count for each species will be assigned to a different color within each bar, okay? So we map the field property. I'm sorry, we map the species column to the field property, and again, that way, for each species, we're gonna see a different color within each bar representing the count for that species, okay? So yeah, so that's what we need to do. So we need to map species to field, okay? And whenever we're doing a mapping, we do ASE and we map field. Um, Actually, we map species to field, to the field property, okay? And what else? What else do we need to do? Well, one thing that we can do, and again, this is optional, like, but I think it's a nice thing to do. We want to label the x-axis. So what are we showing in the x-axis? Species? No, in this case, in the x-axis, we're showing the island. So we should create a label for the island. Okay, and remember to do that we can use labs, the labs function, and labs is just to label the axis. So the x-axis, I want a label like this again, maybe island. I think that's a good label. Okay, and that should do it, guys. Let's see. Yep, that is perfect. That's what I wanted to see. Okay, now how do we interpret now from this? Because that was the goal, right? From this bar chart, how do we interpret the relationship between islands and species? So for example, we can see that for the Torgensen Island, that island is only linked with the Adelaide species, right? Only linked with the Adelaide species. What else can we see? Well, we see that in the Dream Island, we see equal prevalence, right? We kind of see equal prevalence of shinstrap penguins and Adelaide penguins. Okay, no gentoo at all in the Dream Island. And we can also see, for example, that for the Bisco Island, there's a high prevalence of gentoo and some prevalence of Adelaide penguins. Okay, so again, we can see how each species behaves inside each island. Okay, that's great. Um, so what else can I show you here? So according to my prompt, I want to show you how to add more ticks to the y-axis. And yes, that's right. Just because of this. So for example, and this is kind of optional, okay? I think this bar chart looks okay. It looks fine. But maybe you notice that like this bar, for example, you don't know very well. Like does it reaches like 160 or 170 or 155? So you maybe are not sure. Like what is the height of this bar? Okay, so maybe you want to add more ticks to the y-axis so you can have a better idea of the height of the different bars. Okay, again, kind of optional, but I think it's a good thing to know how to do. So I want to show you. So I'm gonna copy this, paste that right there, and how do we add more ticks to the y-axis? We should use the scale y continuous function. On the y-axis, we are showing counts. So counts is continuous. So when you want to modify a continuous quantity like counts, you should use the scale y, and y because it's the y-axis. If it was the x-axis, it would be scale x continuous. But here it should be a scale y continuous function. Okay. So, and that's the way that you can add more y ticks to the y-axis. Scale y right there, that one. Scale y continuous. Okay, and now you can define the breaks property. And here, basically, it's just a matter. I guess you have several options here, guys. So you can just define like with a vector and r vector, the different positions for the ticks. Um, One common way is to define a sequence. So kind of, I want to see the y ticks from this number to this number with this step. Okay. So on to create that kind of sequences from here to here in jumps of whatever number, one way is to use the sequence function. So we can say from here to here in steps of whatever. So guess I want to go from 0 to, let's say I'm gonna do from 0 to 200 in a steps of 20. See how it looks, okay? So sequence from 0 to 200 in a steps of 20. That should look okay. And there you have it. Notice that we have more white ticks, right? And that's okay. That's perfect. I mean, not perfect. No, it's not perfect, but it's better because at least now we can see that, oh, so the high of the bar is a little bit above 160, maybe like 165. Okay. Um, actually close to 170. Okay. Um, so yeah, so that's better. So that's definitely better. And now we can see here, like for the second island, it's a little bit above 120. Okay, and this one is 50. Okay, the last island, Torgensen, is 50. So that's good. That's good. So that's a better approach. Okay, and you can play around with this to maybe get a different configuration if you want, but this is definitely better than this. Okay. All right, guys. So one more thing that we can do with this specific chart is show the percent of penguins on each island instead of the count. Yes, and what I mean by that is like right now we are showing the counts, like how many penguins in the Bisco Island, a little bit above 160. I'm sorry, what count of penguins in the Dream Island? A little bit above 120. And what is the count of penguins in the Torgensen Island? 50. But what if instead of the count, I want the percentages? Like what percentage of penguins in the Bisco Island, what percentage of penguins in the Dream Island, and so on and so forth. Okay. So to do that, guys, let me grab this here, and then I will explain you. I guess I'm gonna get. I don't need this scale because we're gonna use percentages. Let me grab this, and if I need to delete something, I will. Let me grab that because we only need to modify one thing. Um, I think we'll see. Um, how do we show the percentage of penguins? Well, guess what, guys? If you want to show the percentage on the y-axis, right? If you want to show the percentage on the y-axis, um, we need to do some modification because this is the thing. By default, okay, by default, the default setting when we use geom bar, that's the important thing. The default setting when we use the geom bar is to show the count on the y-axis. That's the default setting when we do a geom bar. So to show counts. If you don't want to show counts, and we don't want to show counts, we want to show percentage, we need to tell explicitly to ggplot what we want to show on the y-axis. And how do we do that? How do we explicitly tell ggplot what to show on the y-axis? We need to write a formula. We need to write a formula specifying what quantity we want to show. How do we write a formula? This is one way. We can use the after stat function. The after stat function allow us to create customary quantities that we want to show on the different axes. Okay, and in this case, the quantity that we want to show is the percentage. Okay, so how do we approach that? Well, now in the bars, in the y-axis, okay, in the y-axis, I don't want to show the count. I want to show the percentage. So we need to map now the y-axis to the percentages. So in the AES function, which again is the one that allows us to do the mapping, we need to map a new thing. So let me give some space here. So we need to do comma, and before that, we need to map the y-axis to something. So we need to map, like species to field, and we need to map the y-axis to something. And that's something is what we want to show on the y-axis, and that is the percentage. And again, as I said, to compute the percentage, one way is to use, that's kind of the recommended way, is to use the um, after stat function, okay? And the after start function is just a way for us to write a formula specifying what we want to show. And what do we want to show? We want to show the percentage, and the percentage is just simply count divided by the sum of the count, okay? Um, that's actually the proportion. So I guess if you want the percentage, you can just guess we can multiply by 100. It's okay, guys. It's okay to show the proportion like 0.20, zero point 0.5, but if you want to show the percentage, you can multiply by 100, okay? Um, I think that should do it, guys. Let me just take a look at this. And it does. There you have it. Okay. So now we see on the y-axis, we see the percentages. Okay. So before we saw the counts, now we're seeing the percentages. Okay. Um, I guess one thing that we can do is that label is really bad, right? So it's a really bad label. We can change that. That's easy. So how do we change the label for the y-axis? Using labs. You guessed it right. Using the labs function, okay? And in the labs function, we can say, hey, for the y-axis, I want a better label. And I guess the label should be just percentages, right? Percentage, like that, okay? This should be better. Yep, there you have it, okay? And yeah, and if you want to confirm that the percentages are actually correct, you don't have to, okay? And they are correct, I'm telling you. But if you want to confirm, you can do something like this: penguins and penguins and count island, okay? Island, there you have it, and that is going to give us the count. But I want the percentages, so I will do something like this is beyond ggplot. Okay, I'm not gonna explain this. I already have like 3 videos explaining dplyr stuff. Okay, so dplyr function, so you can watch those videos. But I'm just confirming the percentages. So I want to show the percentage, and guess that is going to be n divided by the sum of n. Yeah, there you have it. And then if we want the percentage, we can kind of multiply by 100 here. There you have it, guys. Okay. And so Bisco should be 48%. Yep, 48%, almost 50. And then Dream should be a little bit above 35. Yep, 36. And Torgensen should be, this is 10, this is 20. Torgensen should be almost 50. And yep, 15.11. All right, so the percentages are right. This is optional. You don't need to do it, but I kind of wanted to do it to check, okay? So that's good. All right, guys. So one more thing before we finish. What if what if what you want to show is the percentage, like, like not the percentage, not the percentage of each island, but the percentage of each species within the island. So you want to see, like within the Bisco Island, what percentage is Gento and what percentage is Adelaide. And then within the Dream Island, you want to see the percentage, not the count, but the percentage of Chinstrap and the percentage of Adelaide. Okay. So how do we accomplish that? Well, here we need to do something different, guys. And that's the last thing that I'm going to show you. If you want to do that, okay, if you want to do that, you want the island to be the whole, right? If you want to do that, then in that case, the island needs to be the whole. So you want each bar to be 100%. And then within each bar, within that 100%, you want to show what percent belongs to each species. Okay. So if you want to accomplish what I just said, then the island should be 100%. And within that 100%, you want to show what percent belongs to each species. Guys, To accomplish that, um, we need to, and there's one specific way of accomplishing that. We need to set the parameter position. So there is a parameter part of the geonbar function, which is called position, and we need to set that parameter to fill, to the fill value, fill, F-I-L-L, okay? By doing that, by setting position to fill, we tell ggplot that we want to show proportions within each bar. So if you want to tell, ggplot, hey, show me proportion within each bar. I don't want to see the count within each bar. I want to see the proportions. The way of telling that to ggplot is you set position to fill. If you don't set position to fill, then ggplot shows you just counts within each bar. Okay. Um, okay, so let's actually go ahead and do that. Can kind of use most of this. Let me grab actually I'm gonna grab all of this and I'm gonna see if I need to delete something. I don't think I need to delete anything. Maybe I need to add a couple of things. Okay, so basically, okay, this is good. This works. We still want to see, the island on the x-axis. We still want to see the percentages. Okay, we still want to see the different colors for the different species, but we need to set, as I said, the fill, um, sorry, the position property to fill. And the way of doing that, that's not a mapping issue. So we don't need to map anything else in the bars, okay? So outside of the, let me add some spaces. So outside of the mapping, remember the mapping happens inside the AES function. So outside of the mapping, we need to define the position, right there, position parameter, and we set position to fill. Again, that tells, and that's the way ggplot works, that tells ggplot that in your bars, you want to show the proportion within each bar, not the count, okay? Do we need anything else? I don't think so. I think that should be okay. That should do it. Let's see. There you have it. As I told you um, now each bar represents 100% or one as a proportion is one. And then within each island, we can see, what proportion, for example, in the Bisco Island, what proportion of Gento? Almost 75%. Okay, and then 25% for Adelaide. In the Dream Island, what percentage for Chinstrap? 50%. What proportion for Adelaide? 50% as well, almost 50%. Actually, sorry, for Shinstrap, it's a little bit above 50%, and for Adelaide, it's a little bit below 50%. Okay, and then obviously for Torgensen, Adelaide is 100%. And yeah, that's it, guys. I guess one more thing that we can do, and this is kind of optional, guys. It's just really optional. If you want to show proportions like this, you're fine. You don't need to do anything else. If you want to show proportion within each bar, that's it. You don't need to do anything else. But if you want to show percentages instead of proportion, one way of doing that, not the only way probably, but at least that's the way I know, we can use again the scale y continuous function, same one we used earlier to add the ticks, right? Scale y continuous right there. And then the way, at least the way I know, to tell ggplot that we don't want to show proportions on the y-axis, we want to show percentages. It's by doing this, by saying the labels, setting the labels property to scales, and this is just a very particular syntax in ggplot scales, colon, percent. Okay, that should tell, again, very, very particular syntax in ggplot. That should tell ggplot that you want to show percentages. So let's take a look. Yeah, okay. Again, now we see the percentage, okay. Again, maybe you don't want to show percentages and you're okay with proportions, then you don't need to do this, okay. All right, guys, so that's all I wanted to show you. So in this video, I show you two different types of bar charts. A bar chart for a single qualitative variable to show the counts for each category of that variable, and then a bar chart showing the relationship between two categorical variables, okay, like island and species in this case, okay? All right, guys, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoy, and then I will see you in another video. Bye, guys.